Right, so what exercises are best for building your glutes? So first up, let me just go through two exercises that aren't going to be mass gainers that a lot of people will do thinking it's going to build their glutes. So first up is the banded crab walk. And this is a great exercise, brilliant at activating the glutes, brilliant for stability around the hips and building that strength there. But this exercise, you cannot load the weight up that much. It's a banded exercise where you're stepping side to side. It's meant for control and stability. It's not a mass gainer. You're not going to build big glutes with this exercise. Now, that's not to say it's not extremely valuable. It is. It's a great activation movement, and it can really give you the sense of what your glutes are supposed to feel like when you are trying to activate them in these bigger lifts I'm going to go through in a second. Number two is donkey kickback. Again, this isn't a great exercise for building mass in your glutes. You can't load the weight up very heavy. It's going to be an exercise that's much, much better for activation, stability, control, and any hip issues going on. So again, extremely valuable. And these two exercises are actually brilliant to do before you start your main glute workout, because you're going to fire up those glutes, get them activated, and you're going to really know what feeling you're chasing when doing these bigger lifts. So now let's go into the three big lifts that are going to be far, far better at building actual mass in the glutes. So first up, we have the hip thrust. So this is an exercise you're going to want to do at the beginning of your workout when you've got more energy, because the glutes are much more isolated on this movement. You are going to get support from the hamstrings, the core. Primarily, you are really going to be hitting the glutes over and over again on this movement. And the advantage is you can load the weight up much heavier on this move in comparison to something like a donkey kick, where you're going to get very minimal results. So first one, hip thrust. Second exercise, deadlifts. So again, this is a posterior chain movement, which all that means is just hitting the muscles down your back and into the back of the legs. There will be a lot of hamstring activation on this one, but also driving through those heels, coming up to the top, tucking that pelvis, squeezing those glutes, and going back into the next one. You're going to get so much glute activation on this one. And again, you can really load the weight up. So it's this mass movement where you can really add weight, build that muscle more effectively. Now you might be thinking, well, I don't want to get too big on my upper body. And don't worry, you won't. It takes a lot of effort to build your upper body. And if anything, the deadlift is only going to complement your glutes. So if your back is built better and the back of your legs, it's only going to enhance that look of the glutes. And third up is squats. You might be thinking, well, squats is primarily a quad movement, which of course it is, but you do get a lot of glute activation on here, especially if you're leaning back on your heels and driving up through, making sure you're squeezing those glutes at the top. Now, if your heels were slightly more elevated, yeah, you get a lot more quad activation. And when they've actually done studies on squat versus hip thrust for glute development, the hip thrust, of course, comes out on top, but the people who were doing the squats still had massive gains in that glute area. So making sure you're going nice and deep in these squats, getting full range of motion, and making sure you are squeezing the glutes up the top to get activation. That's not necessarily going to build the muscle at that point. It's going to be the push from the bottom. But just squeezing at the top, getting that activation can just give you a sense of what that is meant to feel like when you're trying to work the glutes. And there you have it. Those are the three best exercises. Exercises you've probably done 1,000 times or have heard 1,000 times, but they are going to be the best. Anything where you're seeing exercises with people sitting on machines in weird positions, trying to activate their glutes, sitting on the leg press sideways to get more glute activation, doing donkey kicks, things like that. These exercises do have value to an extent, but they're not going to target your glutes or build mass in your glutes like the hip thrust, the deadlift, or the squats. They're just always going to come out on top. There's not going to be a single exercise that's going to outperform them. Now, you could get more activation in something like a donkey kick. You can squeeze your glutes harder. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to build more mass there. It's just simply you can't load the weight up enough to actually get loads of gains in the glutes. And again, that's not to say that these exercises aren't valuable, but just because you're isolating something a lot more, yeah, it just doesn't mean you're going to build more mass there. Focus on the big, standard, boring lifts, and that's what's going to get you those glute gains more. You're better off changing the actual method of those exercises rather than trying to find new exercises that are less effective. And what I mean by that is if you're doing 8 to 12 reps currently at the minute, well, instead, you can focus on a drop set next time you go into the gym, doing 10 reps as heavy as you can, and then stripping the weight down and doing another 10 reps straight after on that same exercise. Still doing that mass exercise, but also now you are providing a new stimulation to the body by changing the method of that exercise. So, still do the donkey kicks, still do the banded crab walks, but just make sure they're at the start of your workout more as an activation move, not a mass gainer move. Hope you enjoyed that video and I hope that helps. See you in the next one.